Great. So feel free to have your camera on or off, but again, please keep yourself muted during the panel. If you have technical difficulties, you may message our colleague Debbie directly. She's terrific with all the behind the scenes Zoom issues. And I think she's also behind the Neighborhood Preservation Center profile. So you can always chat with her. Again, we welcome your questions and reflections. If you think of a comment or a question, please feel free to write it in the chat box, and we hope that there's time to catch up and have a broader conversation as the program at the end of the program. So welcome, hello. We are so delighted to have this program this evening, Resilience and Rebirth in Appalachia, Stories of Preservation, Restoration, and Community Spirit from the Coal Mining Country, presented by the Neighborhood Preservation Center and our colleagues and friends from beautiful Southeast Ohio and around Perry County. So I'm going to do a very brief intro to these dynamic folks who will take time to explain more of who they are and what they're doing, and share with us just this wonderful program. So we have tonight with us Amy Grove, Appalachian Makers Coordinator for Ohio's Winding Road. Scott Kreps, who's manager of Tecumseh Theater. John Winnenberg, who we accidentally left in cyberspace for a couple of minutes there, who's founding council member at the Little Cities of Black Diamonds and at Sunday Creek Associates. And then Tiffany Piko, designer, educator, farmer, and board member here at the Neighborhood Preservation Center. So welcome. We know that tonight's program will be a collection of stories that weave an incredible tapestry of resilience and community. Our storytellers will walk us through some incredible moments in the history of Shawnee, Ohio, including the new Straitsville mine fire, the purchase, restoration, development, and future of the historic Tecumseh Theater, and the impact of community collaboration. So to start us off, I'm pleased to hand this off to my colleague, Tiffany Piko.
Thank you, Danielle, for the introduction. My name is Tiffany Piko. I am the board member here at Neighborhood Preservation Center, and I also work with one of tonight's partners, Ohio's Winding Road. I'm from Lancaster, Ohio, but moved to New York City to study sustainable design and urban planning, where I started interning at NPC and never left. After graduating, I moved to Perry County, which is situated in Appalachia, Ohio, and I've just fallen in love with the surroundings, the people, the food, and the stories here, one of which I will be sharing now. So 139 years ago, a group of striking coal miners set coal carts on fire and pushed them into an underground mine. The flames ignited the mine and the new Straitsville mine fire began. The 1880s were a time of unrest in the coal towns of Southeast Ohio. Several mining companies had merged and lowered the wages of coal miners in retaliation to the oppression and the working conditions. Thousands of coal miners from the areas launched a strike. When the coal company shipped in security and strike-breaking scabs and began evicting the miners from their company homes, workers were pushed past their limits, riots erupted, buildings were burned. However, it wasn't until a group of striking miners pushed flaming coal carts into a new Straitsville mine that the history of the area changed forever. The mine fire had dramatic effects on the land and the people. Smoke billowed from the ground, surfaces in the area caved in, forming sinkholes that took in roads and buildings. As the fire raged on, some residents had to abandon their homes and their farms. At the height, 4,000 people lived in Shawnee. Today, it's about 500. One visitor in 1928 wrote, "One cannot fail to notice the peculiar appearance presented by the landscape. Here and there can be seen large dead trees, killed by the fire at their roots. Where the overburden is shallowest, the soil is baked to a brick red. Except in those parts where the fire has long since subsided, no vegetation flourishes. Sinkholes are everywhere, many of them emitting white plumes of steam and smoke." while extractive industries was literally burned to the ground. Local land owners jump-started tourism in the area with the world's greatest mine fire. Thousands of folks came to the area and paid 25 cents to see flames and smoke coming from the ground. Vendors would sell potatoes and eggs cooked from the mine fire. It's said that the New Straitsville mine fire is still burning today, 139 years later, which is very incredible. The most recent recorded instance of the fire was in 2003, when smoke was seen coming from the ground in the Wayne National Forest. Though some residents have noticed signs, such as where snow has melted, that suggests that the fire still burns on today. Regardless of whether it still burns, the New Straitsville mine fire lives on in the lore of Southeast Ohio. Alrighty, John. So kind of following that, it's your turn to talk about Tecumseh Theater.
Great. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself to kind of put context to the story. So I grew up a few miles away from those mine fires and a few miles from Shawnee, where the Tecumseh Theater is located, and went away to college trying to get out of southeastern Ohio, figuring I would never come back again. Because I saw it as a backwards place and I was looking for opportunity. Well, a few circumstantial things happened in my life after I graduated from college, and I found myself at home. And I went down the street to the diner operated by one of the people in the audience here, Skip Ricketts, and met some really good people who have become my lifelong friends. And they were telling me about the theater up the street in Shawnee, because I was getting ready to move to Shawnee, then was going to be torn down by people wanting the steel out of the building for its value, and that Shawnee was going to lose this incredible skyscraper of a building. So Skip had gone to the owner, and who offered the building to him for $500, because that's what the demolition company was going to pay him for the building, so they could get the steel out of it. And so Skip, we were young hippies, and Skip got his dad to loan him $500, and then he came to people like myself and a couple other folks, young people in the community, and we then formed a nonprofit that was then called the Tecumseh Theater Organization, and bought the building for $500. It's the tallest building in Perry County for all intents and purposes. It's 4 floors if you count the balcony of the theater, which is on the middle 2 floors. And we began replacing the roof on this building. It had gaping holes in it from a fire next door. Water was pouring into all sections of the building. The left-hand side of the building is where there was a movie theater, which had a different front on it when we bought it. And it looked like earthquake in there, because the seats were going up and down in a wave, like the movie Earthquake, because of the rotting of the floor in the bottom floor from all the water that was going through the entire building, taking down plaster. As you can see, the plaster that's come off of the main theater in the picture here. And we endeavored to, this is 1977, so we endeavored to replace the roof. And I really should let Skip tell this story since he's here, but I'll give him a chance to talk when the conversation started. So we got the building dry. We would say that we mothballed it and sealed it. We got some grant money to replace many of the broken windows that had been knocked out of the building. And we endeavored on, I would say, 15 years of old-fashioned fundraising by having concerts in the park, ice cream socials, and basketball tournaments and rock and roll concerts to raise money to pay off the $5,000 loan, and to pay taxes on the building, and to do what repairs we could do. We had help from summer workers that Skip supervised to clean out multiple dump truck loads of plaster and debris that was in the building and got it cleaned out. So as time went on, we started growing up and taking professional jobs and different jobs around the region. Some people moved away who were originally there putting the roof on. And by 1990, a lot of our work had just kind of was stagnant, other than keeping the bills paid, and our group had dwindled. And at that point in time, a couple of friends and I formed a nonprofit organization called Sunday Creek Associates, and went after a 501c3 designation, which we didn't have with our theater group, and began applying for funds for different projects in Southern Perry County, including the theater. And our first grant allowed us, by that time the building was dry, but it allowed us to rehab one half of the building downstairs, and the Shawnee Library moved into that building. And from there, we've gotten multiple grants to redo the outside of the building. We put two rubber membrane roofs on it over the years, and it began getting larger grants. We got grants from Save America's Treasures and what was the other one? I can't forget the main one we got, but they were federal grants. We were also able to buy the lot next to the theater, which was an old den of sin in the community, the bar just up the street. That's where all sins took place in downtown Shawnee. And we were able to turn that into a park with a miners statue. We bootlegged the funding and I got $35,000 to plan a bronze statue commemorating the Knights of Labor Union miner in the park, and we paid $5,000 for the statue because the Save America's Treasures grant was only for planning. So, so we've always figured out ways to make do and make money work for us in a community that has very little old money to donate to projects such as these. So we're highly dependent on outside funding. So over time, we were able to get funds to do the movie theater side of the building. And it serves as a big open space and hall that's used for concerts and dances and a few small box theater presentations, public meetings, town council meetings, conferences, birthday parties, wedding receptions. We rent it out to the public. The library closed in 2008 during the economic downturn. They closed Shawnee's library, the only one they closed in the county. So the 5 other branches in the county could stay operating, which was a real loss to our community. But so we've made the first floor, both right and left sides, a community center that has multi-purposes. And so now we finally have been able to access abandoned mine land money from the federal government that's from mining taxes. And usually in Ohio, the money would just use for land cleanup and of the effects of coal mining. But other states had started using it for coal impacted communities such as Shawnee. And we've just received over the last 2 years and just accepted bids last week, or I guess it's been about a week and a half ago now, to begin construction on the main theater, so we can begin to welcome people into what's going to be about a 350 seat theater on the second floor of the building. So that's our story. I think Scott is here to talk more about how it operates today and some of our vision moving forward. So yeah, that's my story.
All right. I can just jump right in if that works. So my name is Scott Kreps, and I came in, maybe if I can, I'm hearing myself here. It's a little, goes out. All right. So my multiple roles, I have the role of being the Director of Youth Development and the Shawnee Trailtown Coordinator, as well as the Theater Manager. I say that because there's, the stone soup kind of idea that we have pulled together assets and even pieces of grants that have now extended into my ability to work, essentially like a 35-hour a week kind of gig that helps, address these things in our transition as John's talking about. So I wanted to just give you a snapshot, a literal snapshot from a recent week at the theater. And so we have the byline or tagline for the theater is the soul of the little cities. And we really like that nomenclature. And so, so let me just say a snapshot of Tecumseh Theater this past week at the time, November 14th, the Buckeye Trail section leader meeting was held, and the Commons rental was waived due to the fact that they are members of the Shawnee Trailtown Network. So that's a nice way to just like have a deliverable with the folks that we work with in the Trailtown Network. On Wednesday, November 15th, the Sunday Creek Associates were serve as the board again of the Tecumseh Theater. They had a board meeting, and the renovations and the bid process is closing out, so they're working diligently on that. Friday, the 17th of November, there was a rental, and Saturday, November 18th, the Shawnee Farmers Market, which is has blasted off this past year, and we have a couple of very active folks who worked with Rural Action on securing a sizable grant for the increasing the size and the different folks that are coming to the farmers market, as well as artisans and farmers who are selling their wares and their cheeses, flowers, produce. What's great also is the room on the first floor of the Commons, we've been calling it, is that it can now it houses a good group of artisans and farmers to be able to go through and have a once a month farmers market even in the winter, which I would say, and hopefully in the future, I think they're looking at extending the farmers market to every other Friday or things like that. I'm not, I don't want to promise anything for that group, but they are a fast moving, wonderful group that exists. And that is mostly made up of folks that are involved with the Destination Shawnee group. And then continued on Saturday, there was a rural action event that was called Rush Creek Brownfields Community Tour. And I just, I like to highlight the fact that, this is place-based, asset-driven development. And we are proud of that. Southeast Ohio has so many, or at least a handful of amazing assets, including what was, mentioned as the national forest, which abuts, we have a nice little lake, the Tecumseh Lake, and the trails around that are kind of really beautiful, but there are also trails that go, sort of northwesterly and southeast, which is the Buckeye Trail. So we're getting folks out there, and you should tell your friends about it, because you're not going to be elbow to elbow like you would be at Hocking Hills. I love Hocking Hills, and I know a lot of you do too, but get people coming down to Southeast Ohio just a little bit further, and there are some wonderful places to visit that you won't be elbow to elbow, and that you will be able to enjoy being out in a sandstone outcropping in this beautiful, wildflowers that go at the right time, and you will just have an experience that is so rich. So this is the reason why I go through and tell you just within 1 week, this Rush Creek brownfields, they're talking, these folks are building relationships, and it's in regards to the environmental and ecological sustainability of the region, and really turning the acid mine drainage to healthier streams and rivers. Amazing. We're now able to build further partnerships, not just to offer the building of the soul of our little cities, the Tecumseh Theater, but if we can start there with things, then they trickle over into other groups, and we have a ton of groups that we work with now that are part of the Trail Town network. And so we're super proud of its growth. We just, there's some more folks coming in from other agencies that have nonprofit wings or missions that are nonprofit oriented. And so just to say that again, that's 1 week in a snapshot of usage at the theater. And so, I think that the future is bright, and that means that creativity and resiliency really do abound in our larger region and in the soul of the little cities, the building itself. And as we build more programming, as we look at providing rental space for larger events and larger scale performances, we will definitely be tapping into the soul of our region, and the telling of stories as we are right now, and how important that is to tell nuanced stories that have more complexity and layers. Some of these issues are, with the mining included, are kind of just things that you need to untangle. And so some of the most important, the United Mine Workers forming a bargaining unit, and it becoming the largest bargaining unit at the time in the entire world. And that came straight out of Southeast Ohio. And it's just, some of the historic things, the mine fire and otherwise, it's just completely mind-boggling and intriguing at the same time. And I think that to just kind of close my little portion is, if we were to, if all of this just fell apart, and for, whatever reasons, we weren't able to fund this or that. I mean, it seems that even like me coming in and having now this role to foster the youth development of our area, that would still stay there. I mean, John and people in that group that helped in essentially saving the structure, but they put their heart in it, and it's more than just a building. It's something that is, has housed us, and we will potentially see unforeseen shocks, but we will always have things to go back to, including the youth development, including, telling richer stories of the history. And I'm just proud to be a part of it. And thank you so much for being on here and listening to our gratitude.
Thank you so much. And I think we're going to transition now to Amy.
Am I muted still?
No.
My name's Amy Grove. I was not born in Southeast or raised in Southeast Ohio. I consider myself an urban Appalachian. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I got to Ohio in a very convoluted way through spending time in Indiana and then in Columbus, Ohio, and then became one of those turn on, tune in, and drop out folks in the 70s when I we bought a farm and moved to Southeast Ohio on a whim and a prayer, basically. And we're going to make a way in the back to the land movement that was in the 70s, not the one that's going on now. That's a little more sophisticated. But my role has morphed over the years. I've been involved in tourism in Southeast Ohio for almost 20 years and have spent a lot of time learning about and growing and appreciating and all the assets that are available in this region. And so I got involved through employment, first of all, because I was a program assistant in community development with Ohio State University Extension. So those of you who are familiar with extension services, they provide a lot of education and information to the community. And it was a good way to reach out through that organization and have the backing of the university. But I think for in my most recent history, I have retired from that, and I've gotten involved with a project called Ohio's Winding Road, which is sort of the umbrella to some of the development that's going on with the Tecumseh Theater, the community of Shawnee, and other small communities here in our 9-county area of the Ohio's Winding Road. Collaboration, as you see here on this slide, is a big part of what we do. We are partnering with a variety of organizations who do a lot. We have Ohio's Hill Country Heritage Area, which is the fiscal agent for Ohio's Winding Road, because we do not operate as a traditional nonprofit. We are a network, which is a group of like-minded individuals, businesses, and organizations that work together and cooperate to make Southeastern Ohio a better place to live and visit and to work. So our goal is broad, but we're doing it by focusing in a variety of sectors, which not only includes the arts and the wonderful opportunity through the Tecumseh Theater, but also through outdoor recreation, local foods, history, education, and the authenticity of this region and the authentic amenities that exist here. We support each other by sharing resources of time and knowledge and appreciating the individual strengths of the organizations, individuals, and businesses that are part of our primary collaborations. Our collaborations are both formal and informal. So we have organizations such as Ohio's Hill Country Heritage Area, the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, or ACENET, which serves as kind of our technical assistance partner in helping not only the organization of Ohio's Winding Road with our technical issues of business development and design work and graphic work for us, but also their skills and services are available to our more informal collaborators, which are our seed grant recipients, our marketplace producers, and other businesses and individuals that are within the region. So we serve as a catalyst and a connector for a lot of those resources. Rural Action is another one of our partners. They help us with regional marketing. They are also a supporter and the umbrella organization for one of our projects called Appalachian Understories, which is working with guides and interpreters going through the region and offering tours and experiences throughout our 9 counties that highlight the assets again and the authentic experiences that exist here. Even as you can see on a lot of these slides, which I am really appreciating the reminders of some of them, we are a broad-based, diverse, and inclusive organization. And I should probably explain the network piece of what we do, because it is not the traditional nonprofit model. We don't have a board. We have this group of collaborators, both formal and informal, that participate and contribute to the decision-making of the group. And we do it in a way that's done more by consensus, or as our facilitator who's been helping us through this network process says, we work till we all reach our own range of tolerance. So it's kind of working our way to the middle by saying, well, I can agree with that, but not completely. So we continue to work and reach decisions in a more collaborative and consensus building way. So the only way that we can function in this region is by collaborating. There's a question that is paramount to what we do, and that is, what can we accomplish together that we cannot do alone? And everything we do is based on how do we best answer that question. We are focused on a common goal of the shared experiences that we have in working in Southeast Ohio, and the desire to make this a better place, and to live, as I said, visit, and work. Our hope is that we will be able to develop some responsible tourism as an economic driver, as well as urging our community members our marketplace is full of people that have small businesses. We support them, our artists, our producers, writers, and farmers through seed grant programs and all. So we have a very broad base of interest, and we're hoping that we can be the catalyst again for this economic growth and beyond the community of Shawnee. We have a Trail Town program where we're trying to have other communities emulate the success that's going on in Shawnee. So hopefully you all have a few questions, would like some clarification on things, but as myself and others have said this evening, we are a group, a network, and we all work together, and we know that we're stronger together than we are alone.
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and giving us a bit of background as to your winding collaborative efforts and where you've come from and where you're still going towards and what you celebrate. And I just wanted to bring us back to sort of the beginning, and John, and perhaps maybe Skip, I believe you said, was the co-inspirer or the inspirer. I think one of the things that we talk about at the Neighborhood Preservation Center, sort of, there are sometimes these iconic buildings, these places, iconic places around which we build a sense of understanding of who we are as a community, or they become iconic when they almost are ready to be demolished. And so I am just so intrigued, because sometimes these iconic buildings are incredible architectural gems, and sometimes they really are just a heart of a community. And so I just wondered what inspired you to take what seems from the slide, and I'm sorry I didn't really know the building beforehand. It's the tallest building, yes, in the county, and yet there's evocative space in it, but it perhaps may not be the kind of building that you might think of that you have to save. So why was it, Skip and John, that you had to save this building? I think we lost your sound.
You're muted, John.
You're on mute.
Okay. Skip, you go first. I think if you push your space bar, you could talk, or I'm not sure how Zoom friendly Skip is.
Well, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Gotcha.
You can hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Can you see me?
No.
No, we don't need to see you.
That's all right.
He's quite handsome.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like we were going out looking for a project to save a building, or for whatever reason, architecturally or anything else. It just was thrust upon us, we either did something or the building was going to be gone. We had no idea what we were going to do with it. We had no idea how we were going to pay for it. We just knew that we weren't going to allow that to happen. So you've heard the story from John, and it's been a long process, 40 some years anyway. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is some funding coming our way, and maybe we're going to be doing what we wanted to do all along, and that is to rock and roll in the Tecumseh Theater.
Oh, that sounds great.
Right.
I will say your building very much reminded me of the building that drew me, a New York City Bronx kid, up after graduate school to a small county north of New York City to work at a local museum that was housed in the town hall. And when, after the third town hall burned down, the town board put out a notice asking architects to submit a plan to build a building that was fireproof, but that also was aesthetically pleasing, and that should include a space for a theater and for community gatherings. And to me, that reminded me exactly of your building, kind of sort of the other way. But what was, I think, again, the heart of these, and this particular community where this building was transformed into a museum, I think the eligible voting population is like 100 people. And there was one year when the mayor won by one vote. But still, there's something about the fact that you need to establish this heart of your community where you recognize that you've got a civic responsibility. I mean, they also had the vault, and they also had the jail, which was a one cell piece, and the clerk. But mostly this building was a space where the community would come to gather. And that's exactly what you saw in the newspaper every week, was this meeting was happening there, that meeting was happening there. And it had a lower level where there was an open space and an upper level for, it looked exactly like your theater. You could have been in Brewster, New York. For ours was about 500 people, I think, but the exact same stage. So I the fact that there's a calling for this understanding of this gathering. And so I then kind of wanted to ask, maybe going back to Amy about gathering, and then maybe Scott, the other prong of the neighborhood are the people. And how are we, the challenges of keeping people, the challenges of attracting new people, but to respect that sense of community and that sense of history. And also then I wanted to tackle this question also with Tiffany, because I think it's a wonderful arc. Amy came to this community with the thought of being a farmer, and now Tiffany is also farming. So maybe we could just chat quickly there, the two of you, about that sense of why that's important for you in that part of the community, and then just building a community.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I didn't think about being necessarily part of the community when I came. I was young, I had a young family, and I was gonna, make my way on the land with my husband and my daughter. But we did become, as we talk about buildings, really enmeshed in the community, because it ended up being, we weren't going to be able to make a really good living farming. It was tough. And so what we did was buy a feed mill and operate a historic feed mill for 20 years. So we were grinding feed and engaging with the local population, and about as local as you could probably get. All the area farmers came to the feed mill here in Stockport, and that was basically where I learned that the best way to get involved with your community is, first of all, to be in business helped, but also to just be there to listen. And we were kind of a gathering place, particularly on Saturday morning, for old farmers to come in and just grind their feed and shoot the breeze. And I learned a lot about the importance of appreciating the culture, the community, what existed and how people, whether they're not boastful about it, but you can tell that they're very proud of where they are, and you have to be respectful of that, because I learned that I was always going to be an outsider. I was worried about my children being outsiders, but they've been embraced. My husband and I will always be outsiders, but that's okay. But I love the community. I feel like I understand it. The mill that we operated for 20 years, we sold. It was renovated. It currently operates about 4 blocks from my house as an inn and a restaurant. And it's still an anchor in the community. The restoration was done in a very respectful manner. And a lot of all the old beams and pulleys and pieces and parts are still there, to kind of show folks as they come into their rooms what existed. So the buildings make it, it's a big part of how you come to understand where you are.
Yeah, so my story with like farming the area is also a bit of a winding road. I'm gonna tell a story that my mom had told me. She's half Tahitian, and she had said that there's like a common story in Tahiti where when colonizers first came to the island, the islanders and the colonizers would trade gifts. And so Tahitians would give plants or fruit or seeds, and colonizers would give them guns or weapons. And the Tahitians took those weapons and they buried them, thinking that they would grow and multiply. And that kind of has remained like a backbone for me in terms of like growing and planting and being around soil. In New York City, I constantly was hanging out in City Island, which is, so far away from Manhattan, or in Staten Island, or in community gardens. And I started working on like rooftop gardens to kind of fulfill that like part of me. And when I moved back to Ohio, I was really lucky to buy a house in Somerset where I live, and start renovating what was formerly a log cabin that had been severely neglected over the years. It was missing like 2 exterior walls. And the backyard was pretty much all multiflora rose, which is invasive where we live. And so my partner and I took out what we could of the invasive species, put in native plants, and started growing a giant garden where we feed ourselves and our neighbors, and we raise birds and provide eggs to our corner of the village. But what I kind of always say about like Perry County and where I live is that I love the people and I love the soil. The food here is amazing. The people are just incredible. I'm really lucky to be around the community that I am, which is mostly farmers. And we get to swap food. We get to just be together. And it's nice how in Somerset, at least in Perry County, I was just immediately embraced and became part of the community. I love being here.
It's a great story. So Scott, you have one easy tale here from Tiffany who came back home and put roots back again. But I can imagine, as we hear stories so often, these types of communities are tougher. Farming is definitely a very, very tough job, and it's a profession that has seen a rebirth, perhaps, but I think still overall it's a difficult place to make a living. So I guess how do we keep our community together and outside of the specific activities, but again, that anchor that you're holding there, and then I guess engaging the youth and making sure that as part of that community, you're not losing the history.
Wonderful question. And it was just said, it was like, listen to the people that are in the community. And so what we do when we have day camp, we do our best to listen to the kids, and that means to listen to their dreams and things that they are interested in creatively and things like that. But at the end of the day, we've written songs at our day camp, but with local musicians who, this area also has like an uncommonly like really good set of musicians. So that should just be noted. But one or two of those coming to camp, writing a song, and this song is about like, you know, how green the forest is in the summer, and the creek, and finding salamanders, and like these are part of the lyrics of the song that they're creating with a local musician. And it is so important to, like, you're asking about, how do we build community and how do we help it remain, you know, the vital part that it is in our neck of the woods. And so, yeah, I would say, like, from Amy's quote, you know, and I just jotted it down. It's like, we're there to listen, and listen to the children first, because they're the ones coming up. And as we all know, like, any cliche children, you know, kind of quote can be given, but like, when you see it and feel it on a day-to-day basis with you know, with like families that are over the poverty line. Like, we have the southern part of Perry County, if it were to like be its own county, it would be the poorest county in Ohio. So that's what we're looking at too, when we're talking about how to not necessarily flip it, but sort of like, in a way, you know, it's asset driven thought process. And when the kids can be creative in that, man, that's powerful stuff. And I think that's the glue that you're looking for.
I think the garden
Go ahead.
analogy, the garden and planting analogy is really important here, because you know, I feel like we've been at this for 40 years, as Skip said, but we've been planting seeds and tilling soil in a place, in a lot of ways, that was a scorched earth place. For me, I'm 69 years old, and I've never seen a day in my local community where decline hasn't been a part of our lives. Buildings shutting down, falling down, people moving away, being labeled as you know, the armpit of Ohio, all that sort of stuff. And we've been planting gardens in the middle of some of that field of decline and boom to bust, you know, mining, extraction industry. And so we stand with a lot of people that don't have high amount of hope about their community. They may have hope for their kids and themselves, but they have a hard time finding the time and energy for community. So those of us who have been lucky and privileged enough to be educated and to be comfortable in these communities have a job to do as being iconic as the Tecumseh Theater. That building's iconic, but a lot of the work that we all do is part of that example and iconic role that is played around hope in a place that has not been hopeful in most of my lifetime, to be honest with you. So you know, I'm hopeful, we're hopeful, we do hopeful things, but we do it in an environment, you know, that is not always hopeful. And as our culture changes, it feels like a lot of people can learn from us, because as people feel more and more desperate in our culture about what's going on, we've lived in situations that the odds have been stacked against us our whole life. So being resilient and kind and hopeful and productive in a place that's not Disney World is something we know about. You know, that's what we've been doing all this time. And a lot of times it's the process more than the outcome. It's living days well and treating each other well and kind of spreading the seeds in a way that nurture. So.
Right. No, thank you. I think that really, I think you're correct that it's about the fact that you didn't let the building fall down. You didn't let the mill fall down. You're not letting there not be new gardens or gardens there. We're not planting weapons. We're actually planting something that can grow, and that the hope is that we continue to demonstrate to ourselves or neighbors, and certainly the younger people in the community, that there's an importance around these things and about being together and supporting each other. regardless of what our other circumstances might be, there's still something here because there's value in who we are individually as yourself, right? In that respect shows when you can proudly walk your community and say, I know this person, I know that person, they make good soup and they grow wheat or they chaff wheat and they make our flour, and they're here to listen to our stories, and they won't let our buildings fall down. So anyone, please, if you else want to chime in here with a question, please, if you can put it in the chat, that would be great. I did want to then circle back around sort of with one question again, and I'm really, Amy, very intrigued by this not a nonprofit collaborative process. So again, the Neighborhood Preservation Center started off preserving a building in a community and allowing other organizations to come find a place where they could be. And part of that was so that they could actually give back to the community. They were organizations that were doing other things, other nonprofits. They were places that needed an office space or places that needed meeting space for the community. So it was the building, the fact that we're not letting it fall down in a community, we're supporting it. There's a process there. We're actually learning as we actually preserve the building. But there's also this sense that the building also doesn't stand on its, it could stand on its own until it falls down. But part of why it's important is because of the people who are in it. And so I think what's incredible about that process and looking at communities, you've got a very egalitarian approach that says all of our voices need to be heard and listened to, and then we have to figure out collectively. And so I think the fact that the Tecumseh Theater is a place where you now have a place where groups can come and the community can come, and there's this overlay also in this community that we're not telling anyone how to manage a process. We're actually all in this together. So how did that sort of evolve again, Amy? I know you explained it again, but how did that sort of come about that this is how we need to do this?
Well, it's going to go back to John, who attended one of his many workshops, conferences that we all tend to go to see what we can bring back to our communities. But he was the one that brought back this organization, this business called Circle Forward, which is based out of Asheville, North Carolina. And it's small. It's two people basically who have spent their careers developing this network way of governance. And interestingly enough, years before they came on the scene for us, John and I were involved in a process called network weaving that came out of AceNet. So it's been going around for a long time. It's a structure that is not structured. It allows for people to come together, and the majority are invited. I mean, chime in, John, if I'm doing this wrong, but
no, you're fine.
we brought together organizations and individuals initially that we thought were like-minded, just as you would with a nonprofit kind of initial development, but did not want to get into that kind of governance structure where you had to have officers and you had to have a board and you had to do all the trappings that go along with a nonprofit kind of business. So what we started doing was bringing folks to the table, and I can't say as it was always easy to get folks to understand that, okay, this is what's laid out on the table for right now. This is the decision we have to make today. And these are both extremes, they'll come up in the conversation. And how do we get to that middle ground? And it took the Circle Forward folks quite a few visits here to work us through the process on how we all become within this range of tolerance and decide that this is how we're going to move forward. The longer I've done it, the more I like it, because I was one of those sort of on the fringes, because how are we going to get anything done if we're all going to sit around here and talk? My God. And, but we kept convening a lot of the same people. And as that core group became comfortable in that process, it was again, those collaborative efforts. It was kind of like, stick around with us. You're going to like this way of doing things. I work with one of our trail town communities. They were initially struggling, like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to reach any sort of agreement because we're not taking a vote. It's just a quieter process, and eventually people come to like it. They become comfortable in the space. And I find it,
yeah.
Pardon me?
I think they go deeper because of the
Deeper.
processing. They understand each other better and learn about each other. You know, and
There's a lot more listening that goes on
yeah.
in that process than there is, because the issues are, and I can see you shaking your head, Danielle, and here's probably what you're thinking is like, there's certain things that have to be decided right now. I want a motion to do that, and I want a second to do that, and I want to move on because
Right.
I have to do this
We got
tomorrow.
this long list of things we have
Yeah.
to do. We've got these events coming up next week. We got the farmers market.
Right. So there is that element of a little bit of chaos that goes along with it. But the more comfortable we all became, the more we began to know each other better, and we would reach that range of tolerance a lot faster because the goals became clearer the more we met and the more we talked.
There's
And
hardly
so,
like most of the time, because we know each other so well, it's second nature. And there are tools that we use that are really important. Like we do rounds in meetings to make sure everyone gets to speak. And what I like about it more than anything is it gives people who didn't have power before a voice and a seat at the table, instead of just the dominating organizations and people and personalities making all the decisions, while other people sat there and checked out and watched their phone and felt like they didn't really have a strong seat at the table. And I think that's been really liberating. And some of the most powerful things that happen in meetings is when the people who've been quiet through most of the meeting get a chance in a round to share what they're feeling. And oftentimes they have the aha moment that some of us who are typically the decision makers didn't have, because we were so caught up in our agendas, you know, that they saw it differently. And I've seen some beautiful things happen with that. Having plans are also really important, though. You can't just do this without a mission and a plan and your values, you know, going through the process of setting your common agenda of what you believe in. And once you know that and you've set that, it's a lot easier to work together, because that's not on the table anymore. We kind of done that, and then we check back in it on a regular basis. But and you know, it's there are a lot of different things you can do to make it not chaotic. You know, good.
there are a lot of similarities to having a board, an organization, a nonprofit. You do develop those mission and vision statements so that there is this reaching those, maybe
Right.
done a little different. Yeah.
Right. There's some framework. So exciting. So I think I have one or two more questions, and then I think we might be wrapping up. Thank you so much for sharing the hour. So again, sort of circling around to you know, how do we ensure, or not ensure, but just how are we capturing in those songs? You're going to have to send us a recording of some of those camp songs. Just, you know, how do we know that these touch points are continuing? So we have the Tiffany's are coming in, and I expect there's a hat sort of being passed, or sometimes these things change, you know, and so how do you sort of see that, and what are your plans then for the Tecumseh Theater as you think through, again, here's a central part of our community? Are we thinking through, does it get handed off officially, or you know, and not that anyone's retiring yet or something, but as you know, you've woven this you've woven this incredible story, and you've had this incredible drive to say we can't we're important. We can't forget us, and just ourselves, right? And so, you know, so if you could touch a bit on that, Scott.
Oh, wow. To me. I mean, I think, you know, the answer is in the question, and we are, you know, moving forward with the vision really like laced within everyone. You know, if we just slow down, again, I mean, I defer to Amy on most. Amy should be answering this question, but if, you know, just looking at slowing down a little bit so that we can, you know, get a little more organized, get a little more listening in, and figure out, you know, because this is going to need some, you know, the resiliency and creativity. Those are the two things I say, like, from living this long in Southeast Ohio, most people will acquire, you know, resiliency and creativity. And so I think however we piece apart, you know, the roles that particular individuals will play in the rejuvenation of the physical building or the programming or the whatnot, it all comes down to really listening to each other. And I'm on this, you're not going to get me off that. So I think that's whatever the answer is in that. It's, you know, and it's exciting. It's you know, it's like it's a moving thing. Obviously, like, good Lord, it was what, 3 years ago. I mean, we have a lump of money, but it takes a while for this stuff to happen. It's been kicked around and this and that, and it's kind of wild. But, you know, I think that the thing is to feel this group of people like we're down. We're not going anywhere.
John talks a lot about manifesting and just how he's been lucky that things just kind of like happen the way he wants them to, which reminds me so much of the Neighborhood Preservation Center, the former rectory at St. Mark's. Felicia and I would talk all the time about how it was just incredible that all these cool people just kept coming to this building. They kept coming through the yellow room, like no matter what, there were always cool people coming. And I think that's part of like what's happening here is that this legacy will always be carried on because of the energy and the work that's here and the history that's here. I think it'll just like keep going.
So all these cool people who come through here will keep attracting more cool people.
Yep, for sure.
There's an
So,
element.
yeah, that's right.
Can I tell you one quick
Go
story
ahead.
that
Yes,
I think
absolutely. Story, yes.
we're really challenged by how we're going to once the theater space is open, how we're going to keep it operational.
Yes.
and our business plan and stuff. And one of the things that I'm promoting is an event we did for a number of years in different Little Cities community called the Little Cities Chautauqua, and it's kind of based on the Chautauqua Institute that used to have these traveling tent shows through the Midwest and through the coal towns that brought local people and visiting guests and a variety of entertainment and learning forms to a common stage to entertain people. And they were real popular with the elders when we first started doing oral histories here. And so one of the ways I think we listen to each other and continue to be cool and tell our stories to both visitors and ourselves, our fellow residents at the same time, is to have these variety shows on our stage, maybe once a month, like the Little City Chautauqua, that is a mix of Scott's kids singing their camp song and maybe a high-end rock and roll band who will bring their own crowd to someone who might have a political speech to give or someone who might do a theatrical vignette that tells the history of the area, but to keep that gathering space where we're listening and really analyzing our story, which has been a big part of our strategy too, and that is to really watch ourselves and analyze what we're doing and learn from our mistakes and embrace our errors and always be adapting based on what we discover about what we're doing. So, and I think a Chautauqua is a good way to do that, and I hope to bring more and more people to our community who think about how they can do those sorts of things in their community too, because rural America is in a world of hurt. It really, it needs a lot
Yes,
more.
I know, in
streets
upstate
planted than
New
being-
York as well. I know it's a struggle, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle not just because it's to not forget. I feel like it's almost like you don't want to forget. You travel down these incredibly small streets, and they're filled with they're beautiful buildings, and they're just wonderful people in those neighborhoods. And so much of it is a farm history, which is such a tough history. And it's hard. It's not. Yes.
We
And
got
so
reinvented.
I thank you all for being persistent, and for Tiffany for
Yeah.
saying, I want to be here. It's maybe not an easy thing to do. And so as we're heading towards maybe wrapping up here. So there's music, there's good food, there's gardens, there's farming, there's theater, there's the outdoors. I mean, so it's next on my vacation list. But I think one of the most powerful things, and I want to thank you, because I think you open up any newspaper and we're not really seeing that we're listening. And I think that's one of the key pieces, but not just to each other, because we are in the community, so we need to listen to each other, but we need to listen to our history, and even the history of putting our stake in the ground and saying we're not letting him sell the building to the guy who's going to give him $500 for the steel. So Tiffany, maybe you want to close out for us tonight, and I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, thank you so much to the participants who came on here and shared the stories. They're really wonderful stories, and it's amazing to be able to share them to a broader audience, and to have this really beautiful collaboration between the Neighborhood Preservation Center, Tecumseh Theater, and Ohio's Winding Road. I want to thank the guests who came here tonight and listened to these stories. I hope that you'll continue following what we're doing, all of us. In the chat box, you'll notice that there are some links to all the organizations where you can sign up for newsletters. You could donate to Tecumseh Theater if you wanted to, as we continue the renovation. And yeah, thank you all. Have a very good night.
That's right. Thank you so much. And then we will look forward to posting this online and emailing it around to share with other folks, so they can hear about the incredible legacy that you are continue to be building in Perry County.
Great.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
We need you,
Thank
you
you.
need us and we need you.
Yes, that's true. We can't do this without you. Thank you.
You can be part of the network. You don't have to be physically here.
Yeah.
That's
Zoom
right.
is made all
Signing up. I'm signing up.
Okay,
Thank you. Good night.
thank you.